Hello and welcome back to Liveria Library, where I talk about everything comics. Today I want to dive back into the Parliaments of Life and their avatars. I want to talk about their creation, the wars between them, and why. Then also go over a few avatars I didn't get to in the last video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And without further ado, let's get into the video. The Parliaments of Life have been around since before man. In Justice League Dark issue 20, it's explained that in order to keep balance between nature, the Lords of Order set forth an ancient rite that convened the forces that infuse the nature world with power. And from this, the 5 Parliaments of Life were created. The first 3 I went over in my last video, the red, the green, and the gray. The last 2 are the Divide, which represents all bacterial life, and the Rot, which represents death and decay. They thrive off one another, surviving and maintaining a balance between all living things. To protect and preserve that balance, champions are chosen for each elemental realm, making it their lifelong mission. But every once in a while, one will disrupt this balance between order and chaos, desperate to become the dominant force on Earth. Which brings us to the Rot. The Rot was created by writer Scott Snyder, writer Jeff Lemire, artist Travel Foreman, and artist Yannick Paquet. It premiered in both Swamp Thing issue 1 and Animal Man issue 1 in 2011 for the New 52's Rot World storyline, which is definitely the best thing to come out of the New 52's besides Snyder's Batman. Animal Man and Swamp Thing ran simultaneously and shows the 2 heroes battling the Rot from 2 points of view. We first learned about the Rot when former Swamp Thing at this point in time, Alec Holland, which is a long story that I won't get into in this video, is shown a vision of the future by a member of the Parliament of Trees. A world overcome with rot and death, the few still alive running and hiding. The Parliament tells him that Seath, the Rot's avatar, is known throughout human culture. He is the bringer of storm and pestilence. Neither the red nor the green, he is everything they are not, an opposing force of rot and decay. He was the cause of the Black Death and the plagues in Egypt. Seath is the reason the avatar of the Green or Swamp Thing exists, since he makes his home in the most barren of places on Earth, where the Green cannot get to him. He has one goal, reshaping the world into his own, and he's already begun the process. We see birds falling from the sky in Metropolis, bats in Gotham, and fish in Atlantis. We see him using mosquitoes to convert people into the undead army. And while all this is going on, Buddy Baker has been having nightmares. He's in the red, and has been completely taken over by the Rot. His wife and son have been killed by his daughter. She then leads him through this rotted hellscape and away from the creatures she calls the Hunters. They come upon a lake of blood, and Maxine jumps in hoping to hide from the Hunters. But it's too late. Buddy looks down and sees that he's nothing but veins. He then looks back up to see 3 creatures standing before him. They say they are the Rot in the red, flesh-made sickness, and Maxine's true fathers, the Hunters 3. Buddy then wakes up to find that his wife isn't in bed. He runs downstairs to find his son and wife outside, frozen in horror as Maxine sits on the ground, surrounded by undead animal corpses. Eventually they find out it was the Red calling to Maxine. It was in danger and Maxine was somehow tied to it. So she leads Buddy to an old tree that looked more like a bunch of veins coming out of the ground, but it was actually a door that led them into the Red, the place where all animal life is connected. Buddy in the past have referred to this as the Life Web, but never knew it was an actual physical place. He can't help but think how much stronger his daughter has gotten. But why? Well, I guess we're about to find out. They fall through the red for what seems like a lifetime. Maxine tries to reassure her father that they are okay, that this place is part of them. When they finally reach their destination, the heart of the red. Buddy was in awe of what stood before him. Multiple giant creatures that looked part animal, and Maxine seems to know what they are. They did call to her after all. I go over this more in my part 1 video, but basically the creatures are the Parliament of Limbs, and Maxine is the current avatar of the Red. The Parliament tell Buddy that a war is coming and both the Red and the Green must prepare. But the rot has already infected the Red, and they've found Maxine. With one fell swoop, she takes them all out. But there will be more. They will never stop coming for Maxine. She just bought them more time. The Parliament then explains the rot to Buddy, and that the Hunters 3 were actually former avatars of the Red that were corrupted by the rot, and it wants to do the same to Maxine. Her and Swamp Thing are the only hope for the world. Eventually, Abby Arcane, who had been fighting the call of the rot her entire life, finally embraces it and was able to destroy Seath once and for all. But something worse takes its place. Abby's uncle and Alec's archenemy, Anton Arcane. He was actually behind everything, pulling the strings from the shadows. You see, he knew the Green would be forced to bring back Swamp Thing from the dead, breaking the rules of the Parliament of Life. By doing this, it gave the Rot the opportunity to resurrect their own champion, Anton Arcane. And now Anton has lured Buddy and Alec into the Rot, trapping them for a year, and in turn, dooming the whole world to rot and decay. They had won. Buddy and Alec could barely feel the Green or Red. It was weak, but still there. They are finally released and see for themselves that Anton was telling the truth. The entire world is covered in rot. Most of the heroes had become part of it, but they were able to gather the few heroes that were left and begin to fight back. It took them weeks to fight their way through Anton's rotted kingdom, but together, Swamp Thing and Animal Man, with the help of the Parliament of Decay, are sent back a year earlier and finally defeat Anton, bestowing the title of Avatar to Abby, bringing order once again to the elemental forces. So what we learned about the Rot is that it is anti-life, the opposite of the Red and Green, but loves and needs them to live and thrive. It is neither good nor evil, like all the other elemental forces. It just wants to maintain the balance and order of the world despite what most people think. It makes its home in the Deadlands of America, that it calls the Bone Kingdom, and like all the other elemental forces, it has a parliament, the Parliament of Decay, who are also former avatars. Its current avatar is Abby Arcane. Before her was Abby's uncle, Anton Arcane. I absolutely love this story, and eventually I want to make a full video on the whole Rot World arc. But for now, I want to move on. There isn't much about all the other avatars, especially the next one I want to go over. The last in the original 5, The Divided. The Divided first premiered in Swamp Thing Future Zane one-shot in November 2014, and was created by writer Charles Soule and artist Jesus Saz. It's explained in the one-shot that for billions of years, nobody knew of the Divide's existence, not even the parliaments or their champions. Illness was just attributed to the whims of nature. It wasn't until man looked through their microscopes for the very first time did they find a completely new microcosm of teeny creatures, colonizing, dividing, and infiltrating. Humanity created antibiotics to battle these small creatures, and for the first time ever, they knew war, and they had been fighting ever since. And that's about as much as I could find on the Divided. I believe that Swamp Thing called the avatar Sarah at one point, but other than that, we don't even see its parliament. I really hope one day a writer gets to expand upon the Divided and the elemental forces. They're just so interesting to me. Well, the main 5 are anyway. I honestly think the metal and most of the others are quite silly, and there really isn't much info on them either. I think the Clear and the Parliament of Waves has maybe the most. It's basically what you would think. It connects all aquatic life, and the Avatar protects it. The Avatar can also control the seas and communicate with everything that calls the sea home. The first time the Parliament of Waves is mentioned is in Mark Millar's Swamp Thing issue 150 in 1995. It wasn't until issue 158 that we get to see the full view of the Clear and its parliament. The story revolves around Swamp Thing, trying to save a spirit that somehow is trapped in the Clear, but the parliament tells him she's actually a stillborn wave elemental, neither human nor other. She actually had brought Swamp Thing there so he could take her place as Avatar, and she could move on. He agrees, making him the Avatar of the Green, Stone, and Clear, and inadvertently making him the Avatar of Earth. The elemental forces and their avatars is an amazing and probably the most important part of the DC universe. It is a corner of DC that in my opinion has been underutilized. There are so many interesting stories you could tell involving the 5 main elemental forces, and I for one cannot wait to see what comes next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.